good morning to you, Grenada, and the rest of the world. 10th day of January 2019. Still trying to get used to this 19 thing. Pilgrims, good to see you this morning. Those of you already online on the other platforms, and we do expect that momentarily the folks are going to start popping up there on good old Facebook. Beautiful sunny skies out here this morning, and boy, taking a look just about 2-3 minutes ago, taking a look down downtown, we got two humongous cruise ships in town this morning, and they're going to be in here all day, and tomorrow we got three. It's going to be a couple of busy days here. And I bet the vendors and the taxi drivers and everybody else, hey, pretty much happy about that. Where do we go this morning? I'll tell you where we go. First of all, let me ask you this. Grenada-China relations. What's really happening? Try and answer that for you when we get going. Another one. Customers at our banks here in Grenada, are they getting the short end of the stick? Prime Minister is going to try and answer both of those questions for you. Then we do have the national report. Yes, that came in last night. As you listen to it, remember, it comes in the night before from the GIS. And of course, this being a Thursday morning, we do expect, I haven't been in touch with him, but I do expect to hear from our old buddy out there, Mr. Alan Baczynski. So there's your rundown for the next hour here on today's edition of Gudday Grenada. Now, there have been numerous stories of late about the fact that many developing countries, or some might say poor countries, are losing some of their precious assets to China. Why? Well, China has been making huge loans to these countries, which, more often than not, find themselves unable to repay their debts. And so, when that happens, they wind up losing their airports, utility companies, and their seaports. Whatever. This type of behavior is very pronounced in places such as Africa and Latin America at the moment. But in light of our indebtedness to the Chinese, could this also happen here? During this week's interview with Prime Minister Keith Mitchell, Lou Smith probed into the possibility. Here goes.
Latin America is now high on China's radar as the superpower continues its quest to gain control of the world. China's heightened interest in Latin America is flaunted through its extravagant but sustained Belt and Road Initiative. What is Grenada's position regarding when you consider that in Latin America, where the Chinese got involved, they find themselves owing the Chinese, as well as in Africa as well. And there has been talk about our airport and I think another facility, I can't recall right now. Well, that could be affected.
Well, Lou, we can speak to what arrangements that have been signed with the Chinese government and governments in Latin America. What we know is that what we have in Grenada is an arrangement that has worked well for this country, with the Chinese government, and other governments have been very helpful in helping this country as far as economic activity is concerned. And therefore this last loan with the Chinese to upgrade our airports and the facilities there and the roads around the area and creating another runway facility. Also is something that we are moving aggressively on. So we are managing what our wealth. We are not putting ourselves in a position where anyone can control the country. We have taken advice from all friendly governments. China has been very helpful, the United States, so all these countries we have a very close relationship with, and we work very closely with all of them. So we're not in the big power politics.
I want to zero in on, because I'm sure you've heard, call it rumors, call it talk, yes, about China's interest in the seaport and airport.
Well, there are rumors, though. I can only speak to the Grenada situation. We have not seen any evidence that China is attempting to control our natural resources and our infrastructure. We haven't seen that. We have a relationship, as I said before, they're now helping us with the maintenance of the stadium, because that has been a problem for us. With the level of the maintenance required there, we didn't have the resources, and they have agreed to finance the maintenance of that system. They already started working there. So they're helping, and we accept it like we accept help from many other countries.
I always have a difficulty, and I wish you could help me to ease my thoughts, that foreign countries give us aid. But in so doing, what does the country gets that which it's put down, let's say it's a housing scheme. To begin with, they bring in their own labor, or the great majority. The materials being used, coming from their country. They get massive duty-free concession.
Well, it's granted. They give you a grant, and of course, and you get a serious infrastructure project. I mean, every country does it in the process of giving it.
Chinese only.
Every country does it, but they give you grants. If you can attempt to refuse the grant on the basis that you feel you should get more persons employed and so on. And I don't know that is a smart approach in going forward. You can insist on certain basic conditions, which we have done, but I don't see a major problem. We have got an entire stadium from the Chinese and grant money. We didn't spend a cent of Grenada's money. So we may talk about some of the conditions of labor and so on, and that's something that we don't necessarily enjoy, but sometimes you have to understand that is what the international accommodations are like.
All right. We're not going to let anybody control this country. Now, folks, Grenadians are up in arms about the charges being imposed on them by our banks. And this, too, was one of the topics in Lou's interview with Prime Minister Mitchell, who was obviously aware of the concern, since he has promised to talk with the banks in the region about these concerns. He also made certain to explain one reason for some of these debilitating charges which are being levied upon us.
Let's talk money again, or continue talking money. Customers in the past weeks, I'm sure this is not new to you, have stated they have been strangled by banks, bank fees, which are instituted without any prior notice. The ACCB, which serves as a central bank for a number of countries, including our own, said that it does not have the powers to regulate commercial bank fees and charges. As chairman of the ACCB, was the authority. Is this a concern?
Yeah, well, clearly, now it's a concern. The Monetary Council, which I am now chairman of, certainly has been demonstrated serious concern in that particular area. And we are, in fact, looking at this and we'll be also talking to the banks in the region about the concerns that we have, and hopefully they will be able to do something about some of the charges. They have, of course, indicated the pressures on them for meeting a number of regulatory initiative of international institutions because of the whole financial crime issue regionally and internationally. But to some extent, we feel that it's been the prices and the charges are sometimes does not necessarily correlate with what's reality.
Someone told me, I don't know if it's true, that you charge to put money in the bank, the money that the banks would use to make money, they charge you for that.
Yes, yes. Though some of them does not make sense. I think we agree on this. And it's something that we are working with at the Monetary Council and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank as our bank responsible for monetary activities in the region will be working with us on this matter. But it's a major concern.
2 months ago, Republic Holdings Limited acquired the total shareholdings of Scotiabank in several countries, including Scotiabank here. It's a move that has, which has drawn some expressions of concern. Now, I recall that when you were questioned very early in the game, I think that will be, I'm not too sure if after Antigua and Guyana expressed their concern, you didn't seem to be so concerned. You welcomed the move.
No.
And so, talking about,
No.
you welcome competition.
You know, what I indicated was that I thought something as important as this, we should not be taking extreme position and saying that it should not happen. The reality, the harsh reality is that we could have sensed many of the international banks or seen the region as not the best place for their investment. We knew that as a fact. This Republic Bank is a regional bank, and therefore I don't see any reason why we should be overly concerned. We should be concerned, but not to the point where we come out openly and oppose the acquisition. I thought it was not the wisest thing to do. I thought we should first investigate. We have some concerns, yes, and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is our institution responsible for those matters. We should let them do the investigation and look at some of the pluses and minuses, and then work accordingly with the new institutions. I think that's what we should be doing.
Have you expressed that view to Mr. Gaston Brown, the Antiguan Prime Minister?
Well, of course, don't forget, we just held a video conferencing of the Monetary Council, which I chaired, and I expressed that to him and expressed that to other members, and other members expressed the same position that I had. And in fact, assurances were given to give the bank an opportunity to research all aspects of the thing, hold discussions with both Nova Scotia and Republic Bank. And in fact, the major shareholders of Republic Bank would be in Grenada soon, and they're going around the region, like Nova Scotia Bank, to meeting with the governments of the region as it relates to this whole question of the acquisition. So we are in a period of information and negotiation, and some assurances have already been given for employment and other aspects of the investment. So I don't share the major concern. There are issues that you have to concern ourselves with, but I don't see it as an issue for us to go out at this point and oppose, as Antigua seemed to be doing, the Prime Minister of Antigua seemed to be doing. I don't agree with his position at all. I'm sure he doesn't agree with mine either.
So there you have it, pilgrims. Couple of clips from Lou Smith's little tete-a-tete with the Prime Minister earlier on this week, one night this week. Now, while we were listening to these two clips, watching these two clips, a number of you posted some stuff, by the way, those of you joining us, good morning. A number of you posted some comments on Facebook. First of all, Bernard is there, Veronica is there, T.F. Richards, and Sharon, and Irene. T.F. says, there goes the sly laugh of KCM, as if we were all born stupid. Sharon says, they are not rumors. No country gives for nothing. And the Chinese are different from other people. Just you wait and see. So says Sharon. Veronica Sandy saying, So the stadium belongs to the Chinese? Okay. Judy is also with us, Judy Lewis, and Benedict Cador says, why does he keep talking about other countries doing it or they advised him? Can't we think for ourselves anymore? This is not saying that you don't ask for advice. Okay, TF, gotcha. Hold on a minute. It wasn't TF who said that. It was Benedict who said that, Benedict Cador. TF says, this guy is only basing his findings on the regional and international arena. Don't we have a head of our own? Hence the reason for Chinese gazebos in our main tourist attraction of the Grenada Lake. I say nothing. By the way, AB, I see AB has joined us, so he's going to be with us in just a wee bit. Oh, by the way, Fitzroy Adams says, good morning, George. I'm tired of listening to a lying prime minister. Oops. Fitzroy, that word again, lying. Okay, now, yes, AB, we're going to get to you at about 9:30, but right now, the first thing we're going to do is take a little break here, try and pay some bills to keep us, on the air with you, and then we'll come back with the national report.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Speyside.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try their sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
With free island-wide delivery, Hubbard's Building Supplies and Lumber Departments continue to provide the best quality lumber, steel, tiles, plumbing materials, electrical and general hardware supplies at competitive prices. We continually consult with builders, homeowners and contractors to improve product range and services. Enjoy discounts where applicable, including the use of credit and debit cards. At Hubbard's Building Supplies, Grandance and Lumber Department, Caranage, we offer quality service, affordable prices, giving you the convenient, reliable, free island-wide delivery. Call 440-2087 for all your home improvement and building solutions.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Okay, folks, first of all, just let me say to Mr. Baczynski, Mr. Baczynski is sitting there in orange this morning, and Mr. B, I'm just going to get into the national report now, so we're probably not going to get to you for another 11 minutes or so, okay? In addition to that, we got some vocal people there on Facebook this morning. First of all, Coylan Nash says, good morning, and Benedict Cador says, George, you have to call a spade a spade. That's because I suggested a little while ago that, we're hearing the words lying prime minister a little bit too often. So I suggested, hey, something else. Well, Benedict says, George, you have to call a spade a spade. Okay, everybody, we will call him the untruthful prime minister. So says Mr. Cador. I see that we're also being joined this morning by somebody out there in St. Vincent, Claire Palmer. Claire, if this is your first visit, good morning and welcome. Pilgrims, let us get into, right now, the National Report.
Local parliamentarians engaged in a two-day capacity building seminar. We'll have details to this story and more when we return. Welcome back with the news for Wednesday, January 9th, 2019. I am Rakisha St. Louis. Parliamentarians in Grenada are engaged in a two-day post-election seminar at the Koyaba Beach Resort. The seminar is facilitated by the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, or the CPA. The objective of the seminar is to build the capacity of newly elected members of Parliament to function more effectively in the performance of their duties and to better acquaint them with parliamentary procedures and practices. Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honourable Keith Mitchell urged the parliamentarians to embrace the opportunity since it would assist in their political career and the execution of their parliamentary duties.
I would simply like, therefore, to reiterate the importance of this session to the further growth and development of Grenada as a nation and the recognition of proper parliamentary procedures and maintaining the principles of good governance. We hold true to the many of the same underlying values of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, recognizing the value of democratic political processes, the rule of law, and equal rights and representation for all. I honestly believe that with all the young members here today, maybe what is happening in Grenada, the fact that we've on 3 occasions have had the entire representation in the House of the Lower House from one party does not signify, as the distinguished President of the Senate indicated before, that we have in any way lost the major tenets of the parliamentary system.
It has been almost a decade since Grenada hosted this important activity, and according to the Honourable Speaker of the Lower House, Mr. Michael Pear, the seminar is timely, taking into consideration the number of young parliamentarians who have begun serving since the 2018 general election.
This post-election seminar is of great importance, as I said, to us, as it gives our parliamentarians, especially the new ones, an opportunity to get other perspectives in parliamentary procedures and in governance as a whole.
Minister for Infrastructural Development, Public Utilities and Energy, Honourable Gregory Bowen, says claims by telecommunications company Flow that government favoured Digicel in the granting of a license to provide long-term evolution, or the LTE service, is misleading. Minister Bowen cleared the air on Tuesday during the government's weekly post-cabinet media brief. He confirmed that Digicel and Flow did in fact apply at the same time for the license. However, a third provider, Alscom, also applied for a license in the same bandwidth as Flow. The onus is now on the competing companies to reach a compromise on the specific area of the bandwidth they will seek license for and notify the relevant authorities so that their request for the LTE license can be considered. Facing no competition in its bandwidth, Digicel was granted an LTE license.
What Flow has now done, they say that we favor Digicel by granting them, not explaining the conditions to the public and to the consumers. And they've asked the NTRC to revoke the license. Now the minister grants a license on the advice of ECTIL in St. Lucia and the NTRC here. At the point in time they threatened, but since then I have been served, ECTIL has been served and the NTRC has been served, so the case is in process now. And they're asking the court to review and to force the minister. So if the court says, in the extremely unlikely case that the court says revoke, okay. So then, the court is own routes, and so then the license, will be revoked.
Flow Liberty Global has since filed a legal action against the minister and the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, NTRC, requesting that the Digicel license be revoked.
Companies now started to apply for what we call the 700 band. Digicel and the Flow applied about the same time, but Digicel applied for a specific region in the band that they had no contest with from another provider. Flow applied for a region, but ILCOM also applied for that region. So if we had no ILCOM, then Flow would have gotten it. But we have ILCOM and Flow. We asked them to go and sit around the table and see if you can move up and down, because there are other bits there, But nobody wants to go there. Why? Because in this specific band, you have the mighty and powerful producers in the US making phones there. So it's cheap. If you go here, guys will say, wait 2 years. We don't make it here. And your price will be higher.
This is the National Report. We'll have more news after the break.
Big business don't participate.
Welcome back. Grenada moves ahead with plans to submit the first draft of its National Sustainable Development Plan 2035 by May 2019 and the final draft to Parliament by November. The 2030 strategic plan will guide and govern Grenada's developmental agenda over a 15-year period. The 2035 plan takes into consideration development in 4 key areas: economic, social, environmental, and governance development. The steering and technical committees are hopeful that once the final draft is submitted to Parliament by November 2019, it will be enacted into law. Speaking at a press conference on Wednesday, Chair of the Technical Working Group, Dr. Gudday Grenada, said everyone's contribution to the plan is critical.
The national plan will ask a fundamental question, which is, how do you see Grenada? How do you want to see Grenada by 2035? Socially, economically, environmentally, and the area of governance. And that question of necessity must be answered by Grenadians, because this is a national plan. It is a plan for Grenadians, by Grenadians. And so the visions and the goals and the objectives and the strategies that will be outlined in the plan must resonate with all citizens of Grenada. And it must be country-owned. And when we say country-owned, we mean it has to transcend government ownership and political ownership. It's a national effort, and we need all Grenadians to be a part of the process. It needs to be a collective responsibility and a collective embrace for the plan, for its development and its implementation.
The Sustainable Development Plan's agenda was extended from 2030 to 2035.
Initially, we wanted to have a plan that was implemented between the period 2015 and 2030. However, because of challenges, technical and otherwise, we had to change the name to 2035 because we were going to implement between the period 2020 to 2035, a 15-year period.
That was Chairman of the Steering Committee, Michael Stephen. The series of contributors forum resumed last evening at the Croce Roman Catholic School with 5 more sessions in the pipeline for St. Andrew and St. Patrick. And finally, the Ministry of Health has mandated the Health Promotions Department and Vector Control officers nationwide to scale up intervention aimed at preventing an upsurge in the spread of dengue fever in Grenada. Chief Medical Officer Dr. George Mitchell gave the directive in the wake of an outbreak of dengue fever in the region, including Jamaica. where the disease has already claimed lives. Mitchell told health promoters and vector control managers that given the regional situation and the fact that there is likely to be an increase in the mosquito population around this time of the year, the ministry is not taking any chances and will not sit complacent. The CMO instructed that specific and targeted intervention in areas where there is a high presence of the Aedes aegypti mosquito be given urgent priority. He also requested that public awareness and education activities be stepped up and should include heightened vector control activities aimed at preventing any possible outbreak on the island around this time. The principal symptoms of dengue are high fever and at least two of the following: severe headache, severe eye pain, joint pain, muscle and or bone pain, rash, mild bleeding manifestation, the nose and or gum, and low white cell count. The Ministry of Health warns that younger children and those with their first dengue infection have a milder illness than older children and adults. That story just ended the national report for today, Wednesday, January 9th, 2019. Let's recap the top story. Local parliamentarians engaged in two-day capacity building seminar. On behalf of all those who made this newscast possible, I am Rikisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.
All right, folks, I'll tell you what. Rather than going to a commercial break before we get to Mr. B, I don't want to keep this gentleman waiting. So we're going to go to Mr. B and play a commercial break a little bit later on. However, I must make a comment about an article that a story that I just listened to in the GIS's national report. It's going to be very interesting to see how Grenadians respond to the call to turn out for consultations pertaining to the National Sustainable Development Plan, or whatever it's called. You heard words to the effect that, this plan has to be developed by the people of Grenada. That's what I got out of that story. You and I are the people who need to come up with this plan. I sat here listening to that, and I thought back to the run-up to the referendum. I somehow have this funny feeling that if the people had been listened to, the outcome may have been different. But that's just my personal opinion. Good morning to Mr. Baczynski. Let me see, where is he? Yes, there he is. How are you, sir?
Good morning. I am very well. This time, a week ago, I wasn't as well. But I am...
You're what?
I am in a very good mood this week, George.
You are?
I have been looking at the phenomenon of lying. And it has nothing to do with some previous comments that you read from people on Facebook. My entertainment this week on the subject of lying has been looking at practitioners of the art. And I'm talking about the President of the United States of America, of course, just to be clear. So that particular gentleman has developed lying into an art form where it provides material for journalists, for late night comics, to check almost every other sentence that lying individual delivers. Because he is able to evolve within the space of the same address from one espoused position to another. It is quite remarkable. And with regard to his last address, which appeared to have been entirely read from a teleprompter, given wooden expression on his face, one has to look in amazement at the fact that apparently his personal news network, Fox News, is able to accept every bit of nonsense that he spews, regardless of the fact that there is video and audio within 2 weeks previously, or in some instances, even a shorter period than that, which entirely contradicts what he's currently saying. So, as I say, he's managed to develop this into an art form. In the Caribbean, however, we have examples where the time frame is not as concentrated. So, for example, a position taken on the 11th of March 2018 clearly is not the same as the position enunciated on Monday of this week with regard to oil and gas resources. So positions change, you understand. Now, with regard to this propensity that certain ministers have to sign agreements and give licenses, I don't know, the propensity seems to be to award these contracts not to public corporations with an existing track record, which may or may not be publicly held, but preferably, it seems, to companies where not only are they privately held, but seem to have incurred massive burdens of debt. And as has been disclosed, I think, last week, there is a debt payment due in 2020 for one of these major regional telecommunications providers, which they are unable to meet, and as a result have had to be compounding with their creditors, who, and this being the Caribbean, of course, who seem to be prepared to accept a haircut. Very popular as a means of development financing, I understand, but not so good if you are talking about the conduct of commercial business on commercial terms. Because there's an expectation in commerce that business will be conducted ethically. Now, we know that there's an ethical challenge because we don't teach civics in school anymore. We apparently open churches at the drop of a hat and they get licenses for duty-free concessions. And the question of ethics goes by the board, because why bother with ethics if you can get votes? And so everything that we seem to be engaged in, whether it is for public procurement, and I'm sure there will be more of that in the next few days, or for the granting of concessions, or forget public procurement, just in accepting donations of motor vehicles, that ethical standards would seem to indicate that if one might have an association with the importer of the particular brand of motor vehicles, that one ought not to be on television accepting the keys at the handover of the said brand of vehicles. One might be, I suppose, forgiven for construing that the individual concerned was taking advantage of his position to promote the particular brand that his family is engaged in distributing. But that's just an observation. Now, talking about ethics, one would expect that people in honorable positions, when making statements before the media, would take advice. That they wouldn't just come and say that the fact that some people want to hold a meeting might be illegal. Now, come on. You have an attorney general recently appointed. You have a minister of legal affairs. You mean to tell me you can't find out whether or not, when your teachers or public workers, whoever it is, want to hold a meeting, whether it is illegal or not? If you think it is illegal, research the matter. Find the section in the law, and you are entitled as an employer to state that if you embark on a certain course of action, it will be in breach of section so and so and so of the Industrial Relations Act or whatever. But it is unethical, it is irresponsible, it is dishonorable to come on television and say that the proposed action may be illegal. I mean, would I come and say it might be illegal for you to accept 2 salaries when you could only actually work for the regular period of work in a day? I mean, would I be irresponsible if I were to suggest that I don't know, but it might be illegal if you were in a position to accept gifts from suppliers engaged in business with government? I don't know. But these are the questions that, as an uninformed individual without the benefit of legal advice, that I might be inclined to ask. Might it be illegal? I don't know. What I can tell you is that none of our traffic lights are currently working, except for the one at the Paradise Bridge, where it does appear that there's only 2 bulbs, one on either side, for when the traffic light is green, so you could go. When you approach the bridge, if there's no light, it means stop. Now, I don't know if that is illegal. I don't even know whether or not pedestrian crossings are legal. Because as we've recently discovered, they're planning to pass the law. And here we have had pedestrian crossings for the longest while and observing them. No, I have to say, some drivers have been observing them. Pedestrians generally don't look left or right, they just step off and say, bounce me now. So that brings us up into traffic. So we're hearing a lot about congestion in St. George's and what we're going to do to solve the problem. But I haven't heard who were the individuals who did the detailed analysis. Because I can tell you, as a road user, I wish schools were on holiday all the time. Because when school is out, there's no congestion in town. So surely the problem has to do with how are students getting to school. So organize your shuttle for the students. Because of the primary schools in St. George's and the secondary schools in St. George's. And I would venture further to suggest that you're looking at the problem in the wrong direction. It is less St. George's, in my view, than at the tire roundabout in Woodlands, and the next tire roundabout down by Sugar Mill, and the big roundabout by Republic Bank and CK's, because they put a pedestrian crossing in front of CK's, which naturally stops the flow of traffic round the roundabout. All you had to do was move the pedestrian crossing higher beyond the bus stop. But common sense is in short supply. Always has been. Continues to be. Because I am nonplussed at the fact that we have hosted the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association delegation, made a big song and dance about parliamentary democracy. And we have the president of our Senate in Venezuela currently attending the installation of that murderous dictator, Maduro, in Venezuela. Shame on you, Chester Humphrey. Shame on you, the government of Grenada. Parliamentary democracy, and we subscribe to it. I'm done.
I'm done. Yes, a little bit more than a mouthful, Mr. Brzezinski. I made a couple of notes here while I was listening to you. First of all, let's get back to the congestion. It seems to be going unabated, but I'll tell you, yesterday the Grenada Tourism Authority issued a release explaining to people that the next 2 days, today and tomorrow. They're
Don't
asking.
come in tongue.
Pardon me? Don't come in
Don't
tongue.
come in tongue.
Don't come in tongue. Yeah, that's. And by the way, we got 2 ships in here today with about, I think, close to 8,000 people. And tomorrow you're going to have 3 with about 9,000 people. Okay, so you have a lot of people coming in here over the next couple of days. And I was pleased to see that the Grenada Tourism Authority actually took the initiative. Yes, you get a lot of fluff from the RGPF, but nothing seems to be done about it. You're talking about no congestion when the schools are out. Do you have any ideas, Alan, as to how we can go about dealing with this issue that we're facing here? Because it is horrendous.
One of the remedies instituted in Singapore many years ago, and I believe maybe in some other cities as well, is to allow cars which are coming into the city center or going through the city center based on odd and even numbers. So that theoretically, if you were on Monday, Tuesday, I beg your pardon, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to screen or to, screen the flow of traffic according to the registration number, either an odd or an even number. Theoretically, you might be able to reduce the volume by 50%. Think about it. The other issue that they have implemented in London, central London, many, many years ago, is to charge people for coming into the center of the city. And I suppose that charge will entitle them to parking in designated spaces. I believe in Castries and St. Lucia many years ago, they implemented parking meters. And parking meters is a solution that cannot be beyond our capacity to implement, because there are people who come into town and park their car from 8 o'clock until 4:30. And frankly, that is something that ought to be able to be addressed. I know that at one time there was an area on the Carnage that was set up as a parking lot, but typically Grenadians, as usual, they didn't want to pay $2 or whatever it was for the privilege of parking on that side. And so the property, I believe, has been put to another use. But on the cruise terminal side, there is paid parking available, and I believe that it is being used properly. Now, there are people who, regardless of what you make available for them, always want to take a chance. And so you had the report by Superintendent Kingston, I believe, that while they didn't intend to raise revenue to that extent, just by clamping people for illegal parking, they picked up some $72,000 last year. I mean, that's a lot of rich people around this place who could afford to pay for illegal parking. It is a very revealing statistic. Now, on the days when you have tourists in town, I'm not certain what leads to the congestion. I mean, you have tour operators, you have taxi drivers. I guess you have tourists walking around. But surely, I don't know. Without seeing the data, I really don't know what it is that causes the congestion. I am still taken by the view that if we could do something about school children and the fact that school children don't walk, so the parents have to drop them outside the school gate, I would think that could make a big difference.
All right. T.F. Richards here says, Mr. B is in a no-holds-barred mode today. And I'm loving it. Sharon is asking something here. She says, how about parking at the stadium and Tantine and shuttle into town?
Yeah, well, that is something that has been talked about for a very long time. As far back as when I was on the board of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. But the question that arises is, who are the people? Is it those people who typically come into town and park for the entire day? That seems that could make sense. But the idea that everybody coming into town will park outside and take a shuttle, to me doesn't make sense, obviously. So what happens to food fair? What happens to Hubbard's? What happens to all the other businesses in town where customers are coming either to deliver or to pick up goods? So it is unclear which direction they are going. But that's par for the course. The direction we are going is generally unclear.
Laurie Bridgman says, good morning. I'm so happy, Alan, that you can point out those people like Chester and others in their wrongdoings. I hope people are paying attention.
Yep. We living in hope.
We gonna die in Marquee. Yeah? Okay. All right. Anything else you'd like to bung away on this morning?
No, not at all. I just want to wish everybody health and strength. And because we're going to need the strength for this year, telling you that, the way things going.
Yeah.
And finally, because I was not fully well last week, I've been exchanging notes, and I have come across a number of individuals who likewise were suffering from upper respiratory tract infections.
Yeah.
To varying degrees. Mm-hmm. And I was told that based on the symptoms that I had, all I had was the 2%, but some of them had the full 25.
Brzezinski. Well, before I let you go, I got to ask you a question. Now, I know that you're not a lawyer, okay, Alan, but you've been around the block a couple of times. Let me ask you this. This matter about lying, and this is where you actually began your spiel this morning. Lying. I find it kind of disturbing and embarrassing that, so frequently in social media these days, on the streets, on radio, television, you hear the public alleging that they're being lied to by politicians, some more than others, okay? Now, I mean, you and I are often held accountable if we tell untruths, okay? But these guys seem to get away with impunity. Is there a way around it? I said, I know you're not a lawyer.
Well, it's called fact checking. And if you are able to check the facts, and I have to say it's difficult to get facts in a place like this.
Thank you.
But if you are able to check the facts, then I believe in fact shaming. So those people who are lying, you get the facts, and you put the facts out there, and the facts should shame them. No, it is well known that some people have no shame. So, for example, when you see prominent legal people who just a few months ago were jumping up and down leading the charge to break the shackles of colonialism, but then on Monday, they're demonstrating because the basic court facilities don't exist. All the time they were jumping up about the CCJ, they didn't know that?
Yeah.
So the facts have now come home to roost.
Yeah.
So you can't even get your client's case heard. And so forget about the CCJ. Waste that time with that. That is not relevant to the people who want justice.
Yeah. Veronica Sandy is laughing out loud, Mr. B, and she says she's feeling the 2%. By the way, there's a comment that slipped me a little while ago from somebody named Stephen Phillip. This has to do with a parking issue. He says, we need a 3-storied car park over the Market Square and let vehicles come down Market Hill and go straight into the car park, then
Absolutely not. We do
said
not
that
need a three-story car park in the middle of St. George's. That would spoil the entire aspect of our beautiful Georgian heritage. Put the three-story car park in the stadium. That is where you want your three-story car park. As a matter of fact, let the Chinese build it. It could go to 10 stories and it will fall down.
Thank you, Mr. Brzezinski. Thank you, sir. Thank you. You have a good day, and I look forward to your spiel next Thursday morning.
Okay, bye now.
All right. Alan, oh my gosh, Alan, on a roll, as usual. Folks, we're almost at the end of this morning's program, but hey, still got some business to take care of.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenlec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Alrighty, folks, just before we pull the plug here, quick visit once again to Facebook. Let's see here. Margaret Francis says, no car park in the market. Absolutely not. Folks, Margaret has spoken. Jerry Hopkins says, Mr. B, the credible, verifiable substance of your brilliantly articulated presentation this morning, as always, sets you apart. Thank you. Now, Laurie Bridgman says, touch them, Alan. I hope after you finish this morning, you don't have to leave the country. Yeah. And finally, hold on a sec. Yeah, Sharon says, my grandmother, Bertina, used to say, I'm not sitting on anybody's eyebrows, and when they blink, I will fall off. She feared no one. AB reminds me of her. Bless up. Yes, AB, you continue to touch a few people out there, a lot of people. Now, time to go. Time to go, folks, but not before I leave you with a little hope. Today's reading comes to you from Isaiah 41, verses 10, 11, 12. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. All those who rage against you will surely be ashamed and disgraced. Those who oppose you will be as nothing and perish. Though you search for your enemies, you will not find them. Those who wage war against you will be as nothing at all. Can you imagine all of that meant for you? Yeah, you. Isaiah 41, verses 10 to 12. Okay, pilgrims, time for Georgie Porgy to go get some brekkie, feed this little face here, put something in there. So I'm going to send you God's love and his blessings, and let's get together again tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. So long.